Coming up next is DC News number 96, the Happy Holidays, Happy New Year edition of DC News. And we're going to talk about the train wreck that will be the Watchmen prequels that is rocketing your way in the near future. Even though it has decent creative teams on it, just the whole idea of doing it is beyond insane. Sacrilegious. Also, we're going to talk about the comic book adaptation of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. DC's doing it. Also, we're going to talk about the return of Night Force. Suicide Squad is going to go on a hunt for the woman who loves Mr. J. And we're going to talk about the return of Batman Black and White. And we're also going to talk about the passing of Eduardo Barreto and some of the work he did at DC. All that and more coming right up.
Bo's got that DC look in his eyes right now. Looks a lot like gas.
Somewhere in all these comics lies the secret to life. DC Comic Book News, episode 96. I'd rather gather the lather.
Happy New Year, everyone! How you doing? Comic Book Man here. Welcome once again to my video outhouse. Bo, what time is it?
It's DC News time.
Ah, DC News time. And DC News is coming to you from this place, Alternate Reality, which is located at the intersection of 11th and Kedzie. Beautiful downtown Mount Greenwood. Alternate Reality, where all new comics are. 15% off every day for everyone. 2012, 2011, 2013, always 15% off every day.
You know, if they didn't drop the ball in Times Square, right out there.
They drop it right out here at the corner.
They drop it, it would roll down Western.
They roll down Western and run
knock all the drunks over.
Run over Bike Man. Our first story up.
Not the mayor.
There, DC has been hinting that there is going to be a prequel to The Watchmen, and why in God's name anyone would screw around with The Watchmen is beyond me. It
Well, they're
doesn't
talking
need
to the right
touched.
people.
But they're actually going to go ahead and do it.
Yeah, Paul Levitz.
And he's thrilled about it.
When Paul Levitz was in charge of DC, they would come to him and they'd go, you know, we could do a Watchmen prequel because we technically own the book. And he would always tell them,
Cha-ching! No!
Get out of my office!
But Paul Levitz is no longer in charge. And so Dan DiDio decided that it would be a good idea to do prequel comics to Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons' Watchmen. Alan Moore, of course, has nothing to do with DC, and Dave Gibbons, who works off.
There's another reason for Alan Moore not to have anything to do with DC.
Yeah, in fact, nobody even approached Alan Moore for comic.
Well, they didn't even want to ask him?
No, they won't.
Well,
nobody talks
really,
to Alan Moore.
Well, really, what do you think he's going to say? I mean, every movie that's come out based on his stuff, he's always said the same thing. You know, the comics stand on their own. I can care less what they do with the movie. I don't do comics anymore. Hey, you want to see me pull a rabbit out of my hat?
Right. And then he gives away all the money made from the movie to people, to the co-creators. Now, Dave Gibbons apparently doesn't have a problem with this. I don't know. Maybe Dave's tired, needing money. But supposedly they're going to be doing 4 limited series prequels to the original 12-issue limited series. Darwin Cook is apparently going to be the guy who's in charge of making sure the trains are running. Yeah. He and J.G. Jones, Final Crisis. J.G.
There's
Jones.
a worse person you could have picked for that.
Yeah.
Me. Darwin Cook is a good creator. There are many worse people they could.
Yeah, but the fact that he take the job is sort of strange.
Well, yeah.
But him and J.G. Jones are supposed to be doing a limited series involving the comedian. Joe and Andy Kubert are supposed to be doing a Night Owl limited series, and the other 2 writers involved in this project are J. Michael Straczynski and John Higgins, who's working on Nightwing. They haven't really nailed this down, but at a recent convention, for some reason, out of nowhere, Darwin Cook showed up where Joe Kubert was signing stuff and said, we need to go to lunch and talk about this. And that's when the rumor started. And then Andy Kubert more or less said, oh yeah, I'm working on this thing. Oh, yeah. But this is just stupid beyond promotion.
Well, no, this is a cash grab.
This is them trying to
This is a cash grab.
This is them trying to make money out of it.
Yeah, that's the only reason for something like this to exist is for somebody to try to hump some money out. And if anything is, if you haven't figured out that the world has changed over at DC Comics, something like this should be a big red signal to you that the world is not what it was 5 years ago or even 10 years ago at DC Comics.
You say Levitz was always like no, but you know the Dial says whatever.
Yeah. Next thing you know, they're going to do a prequel to V for Vendetta.
Yeah, that'll be next.
Nothing's sacred, don't you worry about that.
Well, no, they can't do that because it's completely and totally owned by David Lloyd, who doesn't work for DC, and Alan Moore. Well, good. But there are other things that they could probably do stories on.
Yeah. Okay.
Bad idea.
Moving on. Girl with Dragon Tattoo has just come out our time and is making huge money in the box office.
It's actually coming out. It was supposed to come out on December the 21st. It actually came out a day early because the reviews have been incredible. Now, we already told you in some earlier segments that DC Vertigo is going to adapt all 3 of these Stieg Larsson novels, and I said that depending on the creative team would depend on whether I'd be interested in it.
Are you interested in it?
Hellblazers, Denise Mina, and Leonardo Manco are the team, so yes, I'm officially interested in it.
There you go.
But they picked a good team to do this. You know, and they didn't pick some guy or someone who'd never worked in comics before. They picked Mina and Manco, who've worked together before, and it had a pretty damn good run on Hellblazer. So I like the idea.
Okay. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, when Marv Wolfman came over to DC, actually late 70s, he did the seminal book for DC Comics at that time period, which was, of course, the New Teen Titans. One of the other books that Marv Wolfman did at that time was a little-known thing called
Night Force.
Night Force.
And it was drawn by Gene Colan.
And Gene Colan. And Night Force is coming back for yet another run at DC.
Yeah, Marv Wolfman.
By Marv Wolfman.
Marv Wolfman's going to write the book. Tom Mandrake's going to draw the book. It's going to be a 7-issue Night Force limited series. It'll start this March. He didn't come to DC with this idea. DC came to him to want him to do the book.
Okay.
Well, in case you haven't figured it out, most of the people working at the New 52, these are all people who were working in comics way back then when...
late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah, late 70s, early 80s, when Bob Harris was running Marvel Comics. All he did is just basically bring everyone in who used to work with him before.
Yeah.
So, I mean, somebody's like, where's Terry Kavanagh? He's another guy who hasn't worked on stuff for a while. But they're bringing all the old folks back in. Now, Night Force wasn't a bad series, but I don't see...
In terms of sales, Night Force never sold worth a damn.
Right.
And it's not because it was a terribly done book. I mean,
it was a well-done book.
You had Gene Colan drawing the book, and I'm never going to say anything bad about Gene Colan. And you also had Marv Wolfman writing the book, and this was when he was hot.
He was a Brian Bendis of his day.
The problem with Night Force was the problem with every book like that. It was a book about magic. Magic doesn't sell.
Yeah, it was... Night
You
Force
can't sell magic. Marvel can't sell magic. DC can't sell magic. Magic doesn't sell.
I mean, the main character was a guy named Baron Winters who lived in a big house, and in this house, if he could walk, he would walk into a room. He couldn't leave the house. That was it. He couldn't leave the house, but he could walk into a room in the house and show up anywhere.
Yeah. But Night Force was a group of pair investigators.
Yeah, they came in the house. It was him. It was Baron Winters. It was a female person. And it was another person as well. And like I said, it wasn't a bad. So he actually liked the show. I mean, I actually liked the book, but yeah, it didn't sell at all.
Yeah. So DC's bringing it back. So
it's part of the new 52.
So it'll be another book that won't sell at all. Because nothing has changed. I remember putting Night Force on the racks in the late 70s when I ran the Comic Emporium. I put it up on the rack and the damn thing wouldn't move, okay? And you put it on the rack next to Teen Titans. Hey, look, Marv Wolfman writes this and Marv Wolfman writes this. I'll take this. I don't care about that. I don't see where anything's going to change.
I don't see any change here.
Okay, moving on. Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad number 7 will start the hunt for...
Harley Quinn.
I didn't know she was missing.
Well...
They got a hunt for her?
In issue number 7, if you're following what's going on in Detective Comics, right now Joker has no face.
Well, that's a damn shame.
And so, you know, Harley Quinn...
I hope he gets it back.
Well, he's supposed to get a face back at some point, but nobody knows who looks. His face is all bloody, and I guess somebody cut his face. It's pretty disgusting. But Harley's going to be looking for Mr. J. And Adam Glass, the guy who writes Suicide Squad, says that issue will tweak and change your origin. It'll also establish the permanent membership of the book because there have been villains popping in and popping out, wandering in. This will have the permanent roster at this point.
Okay.
And Deadshot, by the way, still doesn't have a mustache.
Back in the 90s, DC came up with this idea, one of Denny O'Neil's ideas over at DC for Batman.
Denny O'Neil and actually the guy behind Wednesday's Comics, Mark Chiarello.
Okay, they came up with the idea of Batman Black and White, where they would have a bunch of folks come in and do black and white stories, and that was kind of revolutionary at the time, just doing black and white stories.
Yeah.
Based on Batman. It was different creators.
It was
folks
big, it was big deal, different creators.
Yeah, but folks also didn't normally work on Batman.
Mobius.
Mobius.
It was a Mobius.
One of them.
Well, yeah, one of the stories was from Mobius. And it passed the limited, once the limited series
Alex
ended,
Toth did some work,
Alex Toth did some work. They did some backup stories and some other Batman books as well. And but yeah, DC apparently is going to do a sequel to the book. They're going out and trying
This
to
will
find...
be, I think, 3. The Batman Black and White 1, they did
No,
Black and White 2.
there was no 2. There was no 2.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was a 2. I've got it on the shelves.
You sure it was a 2?
I've got it on the shelves.
Actually, the bust is right there.
Yes, the bust is right.
But they're going to do a follow-up. They're going to try some other big deal creators who have never done Batman stuff before. And remember Batman Europa?
Yes.
DC says it's still coming.
It's still coming. Well, God bless them. God bless their little hearts.
Well, if Jim Lee's not drawing Justice League 7 and 8, maybe he's going to finish off his...
This is one of those books that's going to be coming. When it comes out, nobody's going to care.
This is one of those books in which...
It's going to be, yeah, okay, great, who cares?
By the time the issue shows up, the creator, the guy who's writing all 4 of the issues, Brian Azzarello, will probably be working over at Marvel.
Well, nothing wrong with Brian Azzarello's writing. It's going to be, it took you 3 years to get this thing out, and this is it.
His stories, remember, they're waiting for the artist. Jim Lee's not done with his stuff. A couple of the international artists don't even work for DC, so they can't even draw the book. Like Gabriel Diano. He's exclusive to Marvel. So how the hell is he going to draw his issue? And he's not leaving Marvel anytime soon.
Okay. Last thing we want to do before we get out of here is talk a little bit about Eduardo Barreto, who passed away this past week, our time, at the age of 57. He was a Uruguayan artist who came over to America at some point, I would assume in the 60s or 70s. But he did a lot of work at DC. You may not be that familiar with his name. He worked on books like Atari Force, The Shadow Strikes, which was The Shadow, back when Chaykin
When Howard Chaykin
brought The Shadow back, and it became a regular monthly series.
His biggest claim to fame was he was the guy who followed George Perez on Titans.
Yes, he followed George Perez on Titans. He also did some trade paperback, not trade paperbacks, but special one-shots in the Superman universe. After Byrne redid Superman, he did Lex Luthor, he did Speeding Bullets, which was an Elseworlds book. And he also did work away from DC. He did Elvira over Claypool, and he also did some Marvel Knights work.
Actually, the Marvel Knights series, I think he did a couple of the Marvel Knights series.
Marvel Knights series.
Yeah.
Marvel Knights series. His last published work was this right here. DC Retroactive 1970s. This was a book that DC did this past summer where they tried to redo 70s comics, 80s comics, 90s comics in the same style, both writing and art-wise, as they would have appeared back during the period that they were trying to emulate. Eduardo Barreto was picked not because he did so much Superman work back in the 1970s, but because there really wasn't anyone else
one
for
of the
them
few
to
artists
pick.
from that point for them to pick. Yeah.
Everyone else was more or less dead who worked on
Passed on,
Superman.
no longer worked. Yeah,
Superman back in the 70s. So he got tagged to do this book. But this is actually his last published work, I believe. And he did not just the cover, but he also did the interior art on this.
He also had a nice run in Detective Comics.
Okay.
I think with Alan Grant, who the guy who created Lobo. But he was a good, decent, steady artist. Not a guy you'd go, wow, this is really great artwork. But you'd go, this is pleasant.
Edward Barreto's work always reminded me of a latter-day version of Dick Dillon or Irv Novick or Kurt Swan or Bob Brown, artists in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s who were responsible for getting the books out every month. Everybody remembers Neil Adams on Batman. Not too many people remember Bob Brown on Batman or Irv Novick on Batman or Jim Aparo on Batman. And those were the folks who actually got the work out month in, month out, month in, month out. And they were very steady artists. They weren't flashy, but they were very competent artists. I don't want to say workmanlike, because that makes it sound like I'm trivializing their work, and it's not. But they got the work out on time, and they did a very credible job with the work. And I always like the styles on folks like that, especially folks like Irv Novick and Eduardo Barreto.
In fact, in the New 52, Eduardo Barreto would be the perfect artist because he would never miss a deadline.
Yeah, and the reason folks like that were picked to do these books is because they didn't miss deadlines. They got the work out on time. That was their job. That's what they did for a living, and they got the books done. Okay.
Well, he has a son to carry on.
He has a son to carry on.
Diego is a comic book artist.
Oh yeah. I didn't even see that. Thank you, Jeff. I didn't even know Diego Barreto was his son.
So, to Diego and the rest of the Barreto family, our condolences go out to them. I hope that everybody's getting through the holidays as best they can with the passing of the patriarch of the family, Eduardo. And thank you very much, Eduardo, for all of your work on all the titles that we mentioned. And that's it. We're done. We're finished. We're out of here. We've got no more DC news, but you can go to the store's website, check out all the DC news this man sends me that I post up. Where, Bo, is the store's website?
Sarah knows all this stuff, and she's not drinking eggnog either.
Not drinking what?
Eggnog.
Oh.
It's got alcohol in it.
Not all eggnog has alcohol.
Well, the good stuff does.
www.marltonetrality.com. It's inspirational.
So stop off the store's website and check out all Bo's news. Until next time, this is Comic Book Man.
This is Bo.
Saying, I don't know how he pronounces the word eggnog, but you go back and listen to it a couple of times because it wasn't eggnog. Until next time though, bye!
The Video Outhouse is brought to you by some of the finest people willing to work for free. This is a list of some of them.